Well, welcome. I am delighted to be here with all of you at the launch event of Becoming the Emergence of Being, by Ashkan Tashvir. So this is Ashkan's third best-selling book. It's been such an amazing feedback, input, all of the conversations happening. And I'm extremely excited what we're going to have out of today. There's always a bit of element of mystery. What are people going to say? We will have next almost 15 speakers sharing their different stories, sharing how they have been experiencing the book. And we're going to hear from Ashkan at the beginning. We're going to hear from speakers, and then we're also going to have a chance for question and answer. So feel free to put those, I would say write them down and bring it up there. But if you think you're going to lose the question, don't hesitate to put it in the chat, and we can also bring that up there. So wherever you're at, welcome. Where are we in terms of, let me just check. Fantastic. So I think that we have, more than 6 countries, many different cities. We have some people 2:30 a.m. It is, so it's really great to be with everyone. Okay, so now what are we speaking about? So this is, again, Ashkan's third book. I'm just going to bring this up here, if you don't mind me. Okay, awesome. Just give me a screen wave that it's sharing okay. Fantastic. Okay. So especially if you're being introduced to the work, this is Ashkan's third book. So it's the first ever fiction book, right? It follows the story of Yoren Healy, and we're going to hear so much more about this, but about a person who is has this burning inspiration to go out and build, in his case, a business of his own, and then you go through the whole journey, following him along as he works with his coach. And I remember, for me, when Ashkan told me that he's going to write this fiction book, and obviously for me, for those of you who know me, I'm extremely business-minded, right? I'm going, okay, we're not going to write another business book. What's going on? And then I had this moment. There's so many times that Ashkan shares with me how different stories, right, whether that's movies, whether that's books, how they've deeply impacted him, far beneath the surface layers, right? And he'll watch a movie, or he'll read a book, the same one that I've read, but he'll see so many layers deeper, the deeper meanings there, and how that can literally change your life. You can watch that story and it can literally be life-changing when you come out of the cinema, when you put the book down. And so that's what you could say I developed as I then went through this book myself. I just wanted to take this moment because, again, many of you know me professionally in my work in entrepreneurship, working with a lot of our coaches, with our clients across the world. But personally, I'm someone who I've studied psychology in that regard. I've studied a lot in meditation teachers, in Eastern thought, etc. And going through this work from a personal level has made it, an extremely deep impact, bringing together so many different thought and so many different areas. So I'm extremely excited to especially hear from many of you who will be sharing, and how that has also played a role. Okay, so letting you know, these are there if you haven't heard of them before: Being, Human Being, and then Becoming. And also for those of you in organizations or the business world, there's a Springer book where there's a chapter in there on the Being framework. Okay, now a couple of quick things. This marks quite a different, you could say, phase or different intention here, that for a few years Ashkan has been laying down the foundations of the work, and obviously it continues. But from here, actually, you can see on Ashkan's screen, there's been a lot of work put into the studio and a lot of free content that's going to be reaching out to people, making the work far more accessible to people, breaking it down. So we'll send these out as an email after this session, but connecting with Ashkan on engenesis.com, he's going to be placing updates there. His YouTube, right? So in a second, I'm going to show you a few things on YouTube and what you can expect from Ashkan as that continues. And then finally on LinkedIn, if you want to look at it more from a professional side, these are the places to go. So I'm looking at Caroline here on my screen. So Caroline did an extraordinary interview going deep with Ashkan. That is up on YouTube. Again, we'll send these links through email. And just about a week and a half ago, we had Ashkan on the Culture of Leadership podcast. And so these are some of the things where he is bridging it into the daily lives and daily work of people. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Ashkan. And yeah, he is going to speak from his author's perspective about the book. So yeah, over to you, Ashkan.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Arya. So it's a kind of miracle that I can finally talk, because I totally lost my voice, as you can tell. So the fact that I can now talk is because a very good friend of mine, who is a singer, is a professional singer in Iran, was going through all these exercises with me, and I was so shocked that I could improve my voice in half an hour like this. So you have no way but to bear with my voice. Hopefully it's going to be articulate enough. So yeah, so thank you very much. I always say it's a privilege to serve and to have an audience. It's not my right, nor anyone's right. So for all of you who took the time, registered, and ensured that you're fulfilling your commitment, because often it happens and lots of people register and they don't show up. So I acknowledge you for that. On my end, I do my best to ensure that your time is being respected. That's my commitment, so that you take something with you out of this. And I'm not going to be the only speaker, so close to 15 minutes to 20 minutes, I guess. I will be talking. I'll go from general to specific. I'm going to zoom out and don't talk about the more philosophical aspects of the work that I do, and then gradually narrow it down to what the role of this particular book, Becoming the Emergence of Being, is. And then there is going to be, as Arya mentioned, there's going to be other people, mostly from our community. There are a very small number of people that they had early access to the book. So they're going to talk about the book. I don't know what they're going to talk about exactly, but let's see. They have read the book, or at least a great part of the book, and they're going to share their views on that. So let's start here. By the way, Arya, can you please help Phaedra to join? I think that she was struggling to join. Yeah. So if from a philosophical perspective, if I'm being asked, and I often am asked, what is the greatest problem facing humanity? You know, some say climate change, some say other things. I would say confusion. And I remember it was a few weeks ago in my conversation with I wouldn't say friend, but a person that I knew. I was having this conversation, and she replied immediately, "But I'm not confused." I go, okay. So, yeah, so I deeply believe that we are confused in different parts at different times in our lives. Now, my attempt, the work that I do in its totality, is a series of attempts to help us as human beings in the face of this confusion. So now, one of the biggest, then if you tell me, then what is your biggest challenge as this philosopher, whatever you want to call me, in addressing some part of this confusion, particularly from a phenomenological perspective, common human experiences? I would say establishing relevance. So that's the biggest challenge I am facing. Because we can intellectualize the whole world, as we have a great tradition of doing so. There's this whole history of philosophy and other disciplines. But then that, despite the fact that that's necessary, but it's not enough if we really want to cause transformation. So first, when I started this journey 19 years ago, first, as a series of inquiries for myself, I came up with 24 questions and I added 2 more later on, 26 questions. Let's call them philosophical questions. And I've started looking into multiple different disciplines of philosophy and religion, faith, different schools of thought. And I try to make sense of this word, and particularly myself as a human being. But was I obsessed with human being and our interactions, our experiences, the pains and sufferings, catastrophes and adversities, at the same time, the beauty in this world. So I refer to that body of work, the main bedrock that I have been developing gradually, menology. It's a created word. In Mina, in Persian, would refer to meaning that are transcendent, or some that we don't like that word, we can say there are certain metaphysical or trans-historical laws applied to this universe and us. So the laws of existence, let's put it that way. Now, so as I was developing this body of work as an alternative meta-content, metaphysics, for us to approach knowing different things in our life, particularly human being, I realized that there is one big thing missing, and that was a language. I realized the language, the existing language, doesn't have the strength to shoulder this heavy burden of whatever was to be discussed. And that's not a very new phenomenon. I think most philosophers, most thinkers, they ended up dealing with the similar situations. Hence, for example, let's say Martin Heidegger as an example, started creating words. Yeah. So in my attempt to create a kind of language so that we can facilitate that, then I started working on the being discourse, the essence of a human being. What makes us being a human being? Our whatness, quiddity. Now, because often in the era that we're living in, we are quite confused, particularly around who we are, how we are, and what we are. And we may encapsulate that whole complexity in just like one single term. We say identity. But there are different layers to the reality of who we are, what we are, and how we are. This is one of the major areas that I elaborated on in minological way of thinking. Now, so I had to pause and I had to work on being discourse to facilitate this language, to create this kind of means of communication. And particularly, I set the scope to be the performance of human being. Simply put, what people call it character, because dealing with different people in corporate world, leaders, politicians, wealthy people, or people that are financially less prosperous, I've realized that there are commonalities. But then one thing that was quite clear was there is this common human experience that we do care about certain things. I'm not saying that everyone cares about the same thing, but we all have things that we care about. We have hierarchy of values. And then another common human experience following that is when we care about something, we so want to fulfill that. Now you say, why? Let's not even talk about it here. We just do. And in order for us to fulfill the very intentions we most care about, we need to be effective in our decision-making, in our actions and behaviors. In order for us or any system to be effective, it requires integrity. Having all the constituent parts working in an optimum level. Let's say, for example, the state of health, physical health, homeostasis from a physiological perspective, all these 11 different systems within our body, they need to operate in an optimum level so that we are relatively healthy. Therefore, that causes performance. So now we are unable, I think that my camera was blinking a little bit, that's fine. So now in order for us to even bring our attention to these constituent parts, we do need awareness. We need to bring our intentional consciousness and identify these different constituent parts, metaphorically, the cogs in the machine. So one of the layers, major layers of the being framework in this whole being discourse is an ontological model. Simply put, it's a series of qualities categorized in 4 different categories in the construct that I've created to map out the reality of human being in the scope of performance. After studying over 300 highest achievers, as I call them. So that is there. And as Arya mentioned, and as many of you are quite involved in that, so the framework is being used in leadership space, it's being used in coaching space, and team building, etc., etc. But the Being book was not a necessarily philosophical book. My main philosophy book, Minology, I'm aiming for it to come out in 2 years, September 2025. Let's see how it goes. Now, with Being book is technical a little bit, but the narrative is, I think, well polished enough for a person to follow it, but it's 700 pages of book and it requires a kind of dedication. Human Being book, on the other hand, was designed to go through certain major part of the whole conversation, the being discourse, in a more linear manner, in a way that most people can resonate with. Now we come to Becoming book. So Becoming book, or Becoming series, because it's not going to be only one book. The story of Yoren Haley is going to continue. So after this couple of years, as I've been working with closed groups, and many of you part of the community, and then gradually I've decided, or came to this conclusion that this is the time to reach out to a broader audience. Hence, few different steps I'm taking on my end. And one of them is I'm going to be more on YouTube. I'm going to create conversations in non-textual format. So, and then one major one was the Becoming series. Because when I was looking back, I realized that more than studying philosophy influenced me, it was the philosophical novels that they influenced me severely. I love stories, and I know many of you, many people out there, they love stories. So I remember when, particularly Dostoevsky, for example, the Russian novelist, like influenced me so much when I was a teenager, and many other novels. So Becoming is the story of Yoren Haley. Now, I mean, regardless of the gender, the ethnicity, I've tried to have the book as diverse as possible on the surface, but more than on the surface, like if you go down deep there, I think we all, regardless of our gender or sexual desires or ethnicity, cultural background, we all can resonate with all these common human experiences. And I think everyone can see some part of themselves in Yoren. Now, I did my best to do the novel, to do the story well enough so that it's enjoyable to read. But at the end of the day, it's a piece of engineering. There's lots of engineering going in behind the scene with how the story flowed. So Yoren Haley is this person who, on the surface, has it all. He's coming out of, he's graduated from a good university. He has a corporate career, a lucrative one, seemingly brilliant life. He is a high-paid employee. He has a loving fiance. But then down deep there, he's confused, stuck. He's stuck. And he doesn't know what exactly he's doing. And he has a very low level of vulnerability. He's not living life from this viewpoint that he too is vulnerable to many different things. He's closed. He shows massive level of resistance to anyone else wanting to contribute to him. In some cases, he actually resists, he himself contribute to his own life. So the story got shaped as a result of all these conversations I had with many of the coaches in our community, many of the stories I've gone through myself, dealing with the darkness of the word, the darkness that at times have been quite terrifying, that they led me as a person first and then as this philosopher to be quite concerned with what unpolished being, as I refer to it, can do to our lives, can do to our existence, to our world. So instead of going and addressing all those specific problems on the surface, I thought that let's see what the root cause are. And both in the being discourse as a framework, as a paradigm, and in this story of Yoren Haley, I try to capture that. First, for us to see this resistance, this stubbornness, this inauthenticity, lack of empowerment, the lack of ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes, lack of compassion, assertiveness, proactivity, many of these qualities we go through. So Yoren has this intention, as I said, like everyone has things that they care about. Yoren has this intention. He wants to build his own business. Now, you may not want to build your business. You may have other intentions, but regardless of your intention, you can basically resonate with it, because that's not the main point of the story. Like, he has something that he wants to fulfill. He has an intention he wants to fulfill. But then fear, anxiety, his inability to be with tremendous amount of unknown, uncertainties, his hesitation, wavering, amongst other qualities that he hasn't developed as he was growing up. So they're getting in his way to even dare to jump into that unknown, to even dare to say goodbye to that corporate job, stable corporate job that he has, and actually look into this idea that he always had from his teenagehood, that he wants to start his own business. So he goes through this journey through a few different people around him, and he encounters the being discourse in a particular way. And then this coaching and intentional series of intentional conversations unfold. And yeah, so I don't spoil the story, obviously, but Becoming the Emergence of Being is the first book of few next books that are going to come. So those of you who are going to connect with the book, you're going to resonate with the story or the character, may like to know what will happen next to this person, and I think that is going to be quite exciting. So I just leave it at that, and I pass the ball again to Arya so that he can support us with the rest of the thing. So if there are questions, comment, anything, please have them there, and then Arya communicates like when we go through that. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashkan. Yeah, and as you were speaking, I was watching everyone, and some people were taking notes, some people were listening deeply, and I mean, as you can see, there's so much intricacy that goes behind the scenes to then create this story. What seems to be a simple story, but then there's so much down deep. Okay, so let's dive in, and I'm so honored to introduce our first speaker to share, Phaedra Pym, who has edited not only this book, but all three of Ashkan's best-selling books so far. So over to you, Phaedra.
Thank you very much, Arya, and good morning. I was first introduced to Ashkan when he was embarking on his first book writing journey in early 2020. Since then, I've completed the Being profile myself 3 times, learned so much about myself, and had the opportunity to support many others within the Engenesis community, and I'm truly grateful for that experience. As Ashkan's editor, I've had a unique insight into the development of becoming from the seed of an idea. While we'd worked together on his other books, this was his first work of fiction, and it was a genuine privilege to be part of that new adventure. I was sincerely curious from the start to see how Ashkan would deliver the Being discourse's important messages through the narrative. How would he create an intriguing and engaging plot with roots firmly grounded in philosophy? How would he develop Yoren's character and show his gradual evolution and ultimate transformation? And how would he convey the close relationship between coach and coachee? One of the key takeaways for me was that even though we're all a product of our heritage, upbringing, and environment, and can't change our past, we shouldn't use that as an excuse for how we are being today or allow it to limit us in the future. As Ashkan said, we all love a good story. And for many of us, messages sink in far better when we're invested in a character's journey. For instance, we can talk about moving from reception to perception to conception, But it means so much more when we see that evolution. In this way, I really believe becoming makes the being discourse and the philosophy that underpins it relatable and relevant to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phaedra. And I, on behalf of so many others, I deeply want to appreciate all of the hard work you've done. I know firsthand it's not easy to carry the burden of this work as it goes out there, and we really appreciate your effort far beyond, do you know what I mean, the job, let's say. Excellent. So I'd now like to introduce Caroline New. So Caroline did proofread this book, but in particular, you may want to get used to her voice as she is currently recording the audiobook version of Becoming. Caroline.
Thanks, Aria. Yeah, it's been a real labour of love, this book, and it's been challenging. I actually played a sub-editing role in all three of Ashkan's books, but this one was a bigger role for me, and I worked closely with Phaedra, and there was some back and forth conversations about how do we make this work as a novel and make it really accessible. And it's so interesting to see how the whole being discourse, you know, how that shows up in me, because the level of care I had about this book was huge. And so, you know, there were some really straight conversations about what I believed worked and what I didn't think worked, and how we really worked as a team to make this book the best we could. And yes, we have done 13 of the 14 chapters, and there's a few other bits that we'll complete next week. But then there's a long journey for Mark, the producer, to do the post-production work on the book. So I'm not sure when it will be ready, but that's been really interesting journey to try and breathe life into the book as an audiobook, and use my voice to really make it even as meaningful as I can. So, you know, for myself, I'm a Thrive Master coach. I've been in this environment for nearly 5 years. I'm one of the coaches who road tested the Being profile and helped bring it to the market. So I've had a really privileged role on this journey and in this work. I care very deeply about it, and I'm excited that this book will actually reach a whole different audience. It'll reach the people who don't want to read a philosophical book or an academic book, but who may be curious about coaching. And this will be an opportunity. You know, it's the first book I've ever read that really does explore the coaching journey as a piece of fiction. And as a coach, you know, who's been coaching for 18 years, this was a really novel and innovative way to explore and approach the coaching journey and to bring that to the market. So I'm excited to see how it lands, how many people explore the Being discourse through this book who wouldn't come via Being or Human Being. And for myself, as someone who has coached for such a long time, but has only been an ontological coach for the last 4 or 5 years, it gave me a different insight into a purely ontological approach, because I mesh and integrate a whole bunch of different ologies that I've used over the years. And so I kind of use a range of different approaches in my coaching. But this was an opportunity for me as a coach to really understand the journey from a purely ontological perspective and consider that for some of my clients, that I think that is going to be the absolute approach that's going to work best for them. So it's been a fabulous journey. It's not done yet, and I know there are more books coming, and I'll play a role in those as well. But I am excited to see what this book can do in the world. Thanks, Aria.
Thank you again, Caroline, and also for all of the hard work behind the scenes. All right. I'd like to introduce next John Smallwood. So John Smallwood plays a key leadership role, particularly day-to-day as the director and coach principal of Engenesis Coach Academy. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Aria. And look, first of all, just a huge congratulations to you, and particularly to Ashkan. I know this has been, it's interesting, someone who can actually, you know, every year for the last couple of years now, we've been having a book launch, which is pretty amazing. So I've been coaching for over a decade. And as Aria said, I'm the coach principal and director with the Engenesis Coach Academy. So I've had the privilege of working with most of or a lot of the coaches in our community here. And I first met Ashkan, I'm not exactly sure when, but about 8 years ago. But what I do remember about Ashkan is that he just asked really unusual questions. You know, a lot of people would ask superficial questions, but when Ashkan would ask a question, he'd kind of stop you in your tracks and you had to think about it. And we had lots of conversations around, particularly around coaching. He was really interested in what I did. And I'd already been coaching at that stage for maybe 6 or 7 years at that stage, but he was really interested and curious about not only why I coached, but what were the challenges that the people I was coaching with, what they faced. And when he started to give me some indication about the being discourse and what he was exploring, I was actually intrigued and excited, but intrigued by this guy who was taking on this kind of challenge or this task to explore this particular area. And I'd never found, and like he was like a dog with a bone is the way I would describe it. He would just keep going and keep going and keep going. So this book, I think it was incredibly courageous to actually write a book like this, particularly a book of fiction. I don't think I've ever come across one out there, which is a book of fiction, which really describes, I'd say, the coaching journey from an ontological perspective, but particularly around the being discourse. And I've been, as Caroline was saying, was part of the team, had the privilege of working with the book in the early stages, looking at it from a coach's perspective more than the coachee's perspective. And I think it's a very valuable tool for our coaches to use with those people who are not sure what a coaching journey might look like. I think if you've got someone out there who's, you know, playing with coaching, but doesn't know if coaching is for them or thinks it's some form of counseling or something like that, I think this is a really valuable book to actually demonstrate or show to them what the coaching journey may potentially look like. And then one thing I'll say to you, if you're a coach and you have the opportunity to read this book, and I encourage you to, is you will find elements of your coachees in Yoren. You're going to find little elements and pieces of that, little snippets of what it's like to have with your coaches and coachees in the book with Yoren and Grace's journey. So, well, congratulations, thank you, and it's just been a real privilege to actually be part of this journey.
Thank you, John. Yeah, and I definitely second the point about Ashkan asking questions that stop you in the track that no one has ever asked before. Thank you. All right, now we are moving about halfway across the world. I'd like to introduce Lucy Faulconer, who is our general manager at the Being Profile, and she actually, along with John, had an extraordinary about 2-week period that just ended. The whole Being Profile was translated into the Spanish language and is now live, and there was a big series of events there. But without further ado, over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Aria. Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to see that there's 5 Spanish-speaking people in the call, so we're growing, and watch out, we're coming with the last weeks. But first of all, just say congratulations, Ashkan. This is an amazing piece of work, and when he first said that he was jumping into a fiction book, I was extremely surprised and also very curious to see what it was going to look like and how it was going to end up. And it is everything and more than what one could have expected. But a little bit about me. I've been in this role as general manager for almost a year now. And in this role, I'm committed to supporting our current community of practitioners and also people looking to adopt and join us in this community through the use of the Being Profile. Specifically in the last year with the full focus in Spanish-speaking countries with the translation of the Being profile and taking it to different areas in different parts of the world. I'm also an organizational psychologist, executive coach, so have been moving into the coaching world for the last 7 years and loving it. And I'd say that the biggest thing for me about this book is I know how much of a difference it is to have a different way, a different access to relate to this framework. I'd highlight the value of when you're going through the book, it just goes planting seeds in the reader. And in my case, when I was reading it, where I could get that life doesn't have to be fixed a certain way. And that when we look deeply into our concerns, our worries, and what we call in our framework, the inauthenticities that we have the power to create small day-to-day shifts and big, profound ones that just totally shift the way we live our lives and where we can take it. And I think throughout the book, as you follow the story, that's what you get, like little nuggets that just say, hey, I can question this, I can look at this differently, not from a theory perspective, but just seeing it through the eyes of someone that's living it day to day in the little moments when they get home, they sit in front of the sofa and just the person they love walks into the room and they can have a deeper conversation they've ever had before. And also the other element I'd highlight is how the contribution of others can make such a big difference. Family members, a coach, a mentor, a business partner, your loved ones. And you can see that throughout all the story. If through this book, people that read it can distinguish how the insights, the reflections that Yoren goes throughout the book, if they can distinguish how that can make a difference in their life, I think this is a huge win. And I truly believe that anyone that will read this book will get that. I know it did for myself, so I can only vouch from there. So just a huge congratulations to Ashkan and to all the team that was behind it. I know it was a huge effort, but also such a privilege to have been part of this from the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Fantastic. Yeah, and how you highlighted those everyday moments, Lucy, that sometimes the philosophy can sit on a shelf, and because it takes so much effort to bring it into our everyday lives. But I completely agree, when you start making those connections and it impacts how you're speaking to the next person in front of you, that's where the real treasure is. Yeah. Great. Okay, we are traveling once again to Iran, and I'd like to introduce Aydin, who heads up our coaching group over there in Iran. Aydin.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to see all the familiar faces and the new faces. Yeah, I'm from Iran. I met Ashkan about 2 years ago, right at the time when I needed it. Actually, they say a teacher shows up when the student is ready. So it was a real privilege, and as mentioned by John and Arya, yeah, the questions Ashkan asked and the way he challenges certain thoughts and mindsets was really interesting. And we share a background from Persian literature and Persian poetry. Right from the beginning, we are faced with huge questions about why we are here and what we are doing as human beings. And I really resonated with that because also through my work, I've been working with organizations, peoples, and teams in learning and development roles for the past 25 years. I have realized that as human beings, we are faced with deep existential challenges that cannot be dealt with just by gaining more knowledge, skills, technologies and tools, or just by putting more money and effort and resources into them. So there's a deeper yearning that the being discourse really addresses well. And that's what I really resonated with this work. And the Becoming book makes the being framework so relatable. First, by introducing characters that everyone can resonate with beyond nationalities, gender roles, and cultural differences. And it shows how our family background, upbringing, and life experiences shape how we relate to ourselves and the world, as Lucy also mentioned, and how we can go deeper beyond surface level attributes of our jobs or technical expertise or social status, to see how our way of being is shaping our reality and the way we relate to others. So, and I also really enjoyed the process of co-editing and collaborating to comment on the book as a team, the same way it is done with other work, like for the Being Self-Discovery course. I really appreciate the co-learning and partnership that is in this community, and that's really valuable. So I really recommend the book as it integrates so many concepts in philosophy, psychology, leadership in simple language through an attractive story. And the great thing about the book's narrative is that it travels back and forth between the layers of behaviors, thoughts, decisions, feelings, and connecting all the dots through the self-talk of Yoren and the conversations he has with his coach. So you can go inside the mind of the person and then how it reflects in the conversations with the coach. And it shows how transformation can occur in real bits and pieces and make a shift. So it was a privilege and it's a pleasure to be here in this community and to have access to the book. And thank you, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aydin. I definitely, well, first of all, it's 3 a.m., just under 3 a.m. there in Iran. Just your commitment, Aydin, to growing the community there. I see many snapshots of the growing team. And so, yeah, I really acknowledge you. Thank you so much for your contribution. And particularly what you said there about the ability for the novel to go behind the scenes in the thoughts, the feelings, in transformation, and what Lucy said, that it's a bit messy sometimes, right? It's not this clean-cut, easygoing, motivational journey. There's a lot of challenges there. So yeah, I think that's definitely true for someone who picks up the book. Fantastic. Okay, so as we move on, just a note that Ashkan is on his second camera. If you are looking for him, he is over there. But now let me pass the ball to Kevin Holloway. So Kevin Holloway leads a coaching group called Courageous Leaders. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks. Excuse me, I've got the same problem as Ashkan. Excuse me, I've been in bed for the last few days myself. I could do with some of that remedy stuff that you got, Ashkan. I'm Kevin Holloway, and I'm the co-founder of Courageous Leaders. We inspire leaders to be courageous of themselves, for their teams, and for their organizations. In April last year, my soulmate of 40 years, my wife of 34 years, and my business partner of 20 years passed away suddenly in Canada while we were on a trip. A silver lining that came out of that is when I got back to Australia, Markus was working in the same co-working space and had asked to have a meeting. And I came across for the first time the Being profile. And Markus took me through the debriefing of the Being profile. And for some reason that hit home for me, and it started helping me with my process that I've been working on since that time. I've then continued that learning with the accreditation of the Being Profile, and now am a Thrive coach as well. So thank you to John and Lucy along the way, and Louise, and everyone else that was involved in the process. What this did for me is also, from a business point of view, is allowed me a new way to pass this understanding of the ways of being onto my clients going forward in the future. What the book has done, and by the way, congratulations, Ashkan, a brilliant read, and to the rest of the team as well. What this book has done is reminded me of the so many ways that I am being and how I'm showing up, and also what shadows show up for me. As you can imagine, I've been very introspective over the last 14, 16 months, but it's reminded me of also of what I can do to combat those shadows and work through each of those different times. There's so many times in the book that the light was shone for Yoren on a way of being that just hit home for me. I've got highlights all over the book in my Kindle copy. And one of the things that stood out for me is a sentence saying, "Courage is stepping forward despite the presence of fear, anxiety, and discomfort." And that really has summed up my journey over the last 16 odd months. It also highlighted the impact of the changes that happen for one person, and how that impact and the understanding of that the ripple effect of that can spread outwards to other people. And again, this has happened to me. I've had so many instances of things that have happened for me that have come out of looking and understanding the different ways of being. Why I would recommend this book? I love how the storytelling unfolded the understanding of being, how it clearly shows a path that can be taken by anyone that wants to go through this journey. And then it also highlights how we can adapt and change through this process. Thank you.
Kevin, yeah, thank you. I think you struck a chord for, I think, not only me, but, dealing with some of these harsh realities of life that we all are vulnerable to, the death of a loved one. And I personally have been through that in some recent times. And I completely agree with you. Going and then confronting our shadow, it's something I think that modern society does not really equip us well with. It's filled with distractions, entertainment, all of these things, but it doesn't get to down deep to the soul of what's going on. So I really appreciate you for sharing that, and yeah, how it's made a difference to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity too.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, now let's move to sunny Queensland in Australia. I'd like to introduce Jeanette Mundy. Over to you, Jeanette.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Congratulations, Ashkan, and the team. What an amazing transformational journey this book takes people on. Look, yeah, for me, I've been an ontological coach since 2013, but I came into this community around 3 years ago, when Lucy Faulconer introduced me to the Being Profile and the transformational methodology, and I'm just so grateful for that introduction. And it's just been a continual growth journey for me since then. I personally love to work with emerging leaders and coaches, but especially women. I specialize in working with women in who they are, in their identity and the legacy that they want to leave to the world, and really transcending the limitations that women often place on themselves. Now, I know men do that too, but for me, I think it's really important that somebody sort of grabs this work and goes, come on, women, we can be who we want to be. And so for me, it's really important to just express that first up, that's That's where I'm coming from. I'm married with 3 adult children. I have 5 grandchildren and plus a couple of amazing son-in-laws. So I'm very, very fortunate. And I think, you know, as I was reading the book, what I was reflecting on was, wow, look how we can all relate to whenever we transform something in our own lives, what that does to the other people in our lives. And so this is like a butterfly effect for me. It's like it creates a tsunami. And that's what it had done for Yoren. Look at all the relationships that he has developed into much more effective relationships in his life because he went on this journey for himself. And that ripple effect or that tsunami created is actually what's happened in my own life. So the 2 aspects of being that really show up to me the most in this book, number 1 is vulnerability, because I was the master at hiding myself and guarding myself and just pretending to be somebody that I wasn't because I was so worried to show up as myself. It was almost like I didn't have permission or didn't give myself permission to be me. So I think we can all relate to Yoren's journey of really going through that transformation of his own invulnerabilities and really standing out in the world in what really matters to him. That's my journey. And being authentic is absolutely, in my opinion, one of the most crucial things that we can give ourselves in this life. And so that's what that book sort of shows me, because now once he did that, the ripple effect that had on his relationships, all of his different relationships, was astronomical. And so through the book, I started going back into looking at the past and going, oh, well, what's changed for me? Everything. The relationship that I have with my husband has changed. The relationship I have with my children has changed. The relationship I have with my sisters has changed. The relationship I have with my clients has changed. And so if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, what's in this for me? Well, if you're a coach or a consultant, or even if you're a partner of someone else, everything is in it for you. Transformation is everything. So I just implore you to read the book and really take yourself on that journey of transformation, because it matters. It really, truly matters. And that's why I would recommend you read it and see what's there for you. Because it doesn't matter who we are in the world, we have something to give. We have a legacy to lead. And I love this work, and I really love being part of this community as a platform partner and a Thrive coach. And I love the people who have touched me in this community. It's an amazing journey, and I can't wait to see what comes. So thank you.
Right, Jeanette. Thank you. And I think, Aydin said it well in the chat. He said that quote, that how the transformation of one person can ripple out to the lives of others, the butterfly effect. And I know many instances I've been on a call with you and you just came from talking to a loved one, and, you know, it's right in front of you. So yeah, that is a true gift, Jeanette. I think how you're taking on the work, but then I think for everyone, when we're reading it, it has a real impact. You know what I mean? It's not some theoretical or just the story. It has a true potential to go deeper. Thank you. Okay, so I'd next like to introduce Anna Carr, based in Canberra in Australia. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Aria. And first up, I want to thank Ashkan. I want to thank Ashkan because when I got really present to how this book in particular can take us away or take us out of the self-focus and instruct us into removing the worry and the self-concern, it got me really present to what's possible. And that's what I'm very grateful for, to Ashkan and to the coaches, my coach, to John, to Louise, to all of the community. It's a gratitude I'm very clear about. So my name's Anna and I live in Canberra, the capital. It's very cold, it's sunny, and there are daffodils. But that is not what I want to say here. I want to say that I developed myself first up as in community development and social science as an academic, and then moved into from the big picture right to the individual picture. So I've kind of flipped my life from looking at the global systems and how and where we can fix and create something transformative for the world into one conversation at once. And that's been an extraordinary process. I'm not going to say journey because it's not over yet. It's a process of discovery. So when I read this book, I decided from my first thing in the morning, I'm not quite there yet, John, in terms of transforming my relationship to first thing in the morning. But my first thought is never my best thought. And my first thought is almost always somebody else's. So when I'm reading it, I'm noticing, there's that. I hate this. I love that. Oh my God, look at this. And I'm just completely like reacting to the text. And it's quite extraordinary when I went, oh, wait, that's an opportunity. How can I transform that? And being with all of my, what I love, what I hate, what I really inspired by, I just got to notice it. And then I could choose. So like Yoren and his vulnerability or invulnerability journey, that was for me noticing where and how I was so unwilling to take on something completely novel. And this is not a novel, it is novel. It's unique. It's a profound contribution of someone's expression. So that's why I encourage you to read it. The difference, in a sense, for me is that what's possible when we stop going from the outside in and really begin to notice who we are and what's possible, one conversation at once, and how the rigorous ontological training that you'll get from reading this book can make a profound difference. So humbly, even yesterday, I'm noticing, and every conversation I have now is like, I'm taking that person said something very important. I'm grateful. So I'm going to end with gratitude and recognize the whole community for this, and particularly to Ashkan.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, like that image is in my head, waking up and that first thought and realizing that it's not even your own. Now, being able to dismantle something like that, it's a very intricate thing to do. And I think you articulated it extremely well, Anna, that's this novel approach of being able to, dive to those depths and make a difference to yourself, before you then make a difference to others. So, thank you, Anna. Fantastic. Okay, so up next we have Jacqueline Hoftse, based in Sydney. Where are you, Jacqueline? Over to you.
Thank you, Aria, and good to see everyone here. And I want to start with congratulating Ashkan, not only to this third book. I mean, what has he achieved? Look at all of us, the depth of sharing. And this is part of what Ashkan has created in his world. And the business he's created is so much more than just a business. I just love being here. And I really deeply, deeply thank you, Ashkan, for all the challenges that you had to remove to be here. And so I met Ashkan probably roughly 9 years ago. He just came fresh from Iran, and we were working for the same company. And I just, immediately thought, wow, there's something about this guy. Not only was he super, super smart and could sort of manage so much information in his head and shuffle it around like a puzzle, he could also go home and transform an aspect of his life. And the next morning he would come back, and I thought, oh my God, he shifted a mountain last night. And no surprise there. And then as we were becoming friends, he shared with me that he is a poet, and he wrote poetry in Persian language. And this really touched my heart. It still does. And not only did he share that with me, he also shared his frustration that at the time, now speaking English, he cannot express himself. That's his unique being crying up. And if we cannot express our unique being, it hurts our soul. And I could feel how it was hurting his soul, that he could not express himself in English as well as he could in Persian. And look at him now, years later. Not only has he created this vast business, he has put language, he has improved his English capacity of expressing himself. And this is what he was alluding to in his introductory speech, how important language is and the means to express yourself, and how much he needed to care, not only to build this, to keep us all aligned, to create these deep relationships. Just, consider the sharing that's already has happened. That is extraordinary. And it is because of Ashkan. And this is what you find in the book, Becoming. It's because it's about becoming, and it takes the mystery out of transformation. It makes it really, really clear. And initially also Ashkan spoke about that he thinks we suffer from confusion like society does. And this is how the book starts, because sometimes there's something missing in our life. We don't know exactly what it is. And this is what the book describes. It's taking people out of this confusion, this nagging voice. What's missing in my life? Why am I not so fulfilled? It makes it really clear. It also makes the path really clear. And it takes the mystery out of transformation. I just so love this book. Like when I got it, I thought this is going to be fun. I grab a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I just, read this book in 2 days, full nonstop. So I really want to thank you, Ashkan, from the bottom of my heart, that I was able to share this journey with you. And what you've created, the beautiful team you have, and the different leaders throughout the world. This is just the start. And I also wish you all the best for, your family that you're creating as well. I don't know how you do it, but thanks so much.
Oh, Jacqueline, yeah, she said these words, if we can't express our unique being, it hurts our soul. And I think you just wrap together Yoren's journey, but I think that's the human being, the journey of the human being. And I was literally having this conversation recently. I sit there sometimes and imagine how many people they're not present to that's happening. Yeah, that they have that burning desire to express that thing in the world, but for many people it's completely invisible, or it's even a pipe dream, or it's like they would relate to it as a fantasy. And so I just think that how you embody the work, Jacqueline, and how you take it on so thoroughly, it's a huge contribution to the community, to your clients. Thank you. Okay, what's next? Over to Markus O Winzer, based on the beaches in Sydney. let's hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Yeah?
Very clear.
Awesome. Yeah. Actually, I've written some notes, but then they all go out of the window, similar to what you said, Anna. I got introduced to this community in 2020. After a 20 years career in business, I stepped into coaching and transformation, and now really supporting other leaders in sales and marketing, but mostly also business owners in really discovering how can they become more effective. Now, being effective means so many different things to so many different people. Sometimes it just simply means being okay with who you are. And I've discovered that with so many different clients. More than 100 people have done the Being profile. And I'm actually so glad that I was able to this point to make such a difference to so many people, thanks to you, Ashkan. So I thank you not only for creating this framework and the books, but to creating the space and the community that now ripples throughout the world to make a difference. Because I think that's the biggest contribution that you are, to support people in taking off the shackles that we may have created for ourselves in our lives. So why this book? I love this one sentence. What will Jen think if I ask her to connect me with a coach? She might think I'm weak and that I can't take care of my issues on my own, just like Dad when it comes to the household finances. Thinking that we're weak and that we can't ask for help is one of the biggest stoppers in the world to access our greatness, because sometimes it just takes a conversation to get access to support. I think that's the biggest thing that I've realized. Being vulnerable is not a weakness. And I realized that going back to Germany just 5 weeks ago, when I asked my dad and mom, how did you actually grow up? And he said, we didn't have any food, didn't have any money, but we had to cook for the Russian soldiers that were in our house after the occupation in Germany, 1945. And so I realized people are living inside their own prison all their lives because of what happened, of what they've heard, that I can't live my life truly. So what I think this book and why you should read it is it, or why you should actually, this community, why you should give this book to other people, because it holds the access to freedom. And then to be truly grateful and be okay with who you are and the value that you really provide to this world, and you can provide. To live a life not only because you live it, but to live it to the best possible version of yourself. And so for that, I thank you, Ashkan, for giving access not only to me, but to so many people. And I can see it will ripple through the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Markus. Thank you for throwing away your notes and giving us a glimpse of who you are, Markus. And you said that just that short sentence of being vulnerable is not a weakness. But then how you tied it to the perfect moment in the book where you're hesitating to ask for help. I mean, I think that every single person would resonate with that, of how we wish sometimes, I think, that we would have this stronger armor as human beings. But it's exactly coming to terms with that gives us the power. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I'd like to introduce David Lowe. David, over to you to share.
Thanks, Aria and Ashkan and everyone. In this community as well. Just a bit of introduction, I guess, on how I met Ashkan, as everyone had. Ashkan was actually one of my customers a few years ago when he wanted a fighting fish. And it was struck me as someone who had it all and was very articulate and all that. But something in him really, really struck me that it's like, wow, I actually want to get to know this person so much more. And when I first met him, I didn't have that opportunity. I think it was not only until, in the midst of COVID, that we started talking more and more. And I could remember this one time I asked him, you know what I do, but I don't even know what you do. And from then, he spoke to me about the being profile. He spoke to me about what Engenesis stands and all that. And my heart just leapt. And my heart just leapt because I wanted, it's something that I was always wanting to be involved in. And I became a being accredited practitioner, a Thrive coach, and now I'm doing my Being Mastery. And every step of the way, I could see growth. I could see transformation within me. And I really feel that, wow, this is such a great community. There's so many people in this group that is such high caliber people that has gone further than me and so forth. And I'm really, really privileged for that. I really feel that when I was reading the book, I found that everything that I've done from this point onwards were just clicking into place. And it was just clicking into place, and I go, aha, that's why there's the Being Practitioner training. That's why there's the Thrive Coach training. That's why there's the Being Mastery training. It's because it just clicks. Everything just clicks into place. And it just showed to me that, how I relate to the being discourse, how I relate, to my family, to my kids, to my workmates, to my customers, everyone else. And it just showed me that, lastly, I think what it does, it showed me on how I could be a better coach and how I could be a better human being. And yeah, I really loved it. I'm really loving reading the book, and I really love the connection it brought in my life as well. So with that, thanks, Arya. Thanks, Ashkan, for it.
Thank you very much, David. And I completely agree. Phaedra in the chat said it's wonderful to hear these backstories from the fighting fish and how the conversation unfolded. But I think it's actually a testament that, see, a lot of this work can be extremely theoretical, and then, it doesn't translate. And I think even that can be a big criticism for a lot of this style of thing, right? That it goes, okay, but what does it mean in real life? And you sharing that story, David, I was just so present to how Ashkan is there connecting with the people around him and at such a deep level. And I think it's through that then the stories came. Does that make sense? That it was that first. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. Okay, so last but not least by any means, I'd like to introduce Louise Smallwood. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Arya. Actually, I noticed my heart's beating, and it's really interesting. This is our third book launch, right, Ashkan? I mean, I'm sure, well, you've done more than that, but incredible. And I've just noticed, I don't take notes for these things. I just like to share what's there for me. And oh my gosh, I'm so present to just the people on this call, actually. And how far have we come? I mean, think about the first book launch. And those of you who haven't been at book launches, welcome to our community. And I just think about who we were as a community and everybody who's come along the journey and where we are now, and just everybody sharing. Amazing. So firstly, obviously, how can we not thank Ashkan? Ashkan, thank you. thank you for, as John put it right at the beginning, being like that dog with a bone with this work, and your commitment to giving us a common language to be able to support people in transforming their lives. Becoming, and I love that it's becoming. It's not became. Here, it's becoming. And I kind of got to the end where the mansion, I'm like, well, the mansion's not my becoming. That's not my fulfillment, but that's not what it is. This is about what's fulfilling it us as an individual, and that's Yoren's example. And there's more to the story, because we know that life it is full of challenges. And so actually, I'm really excited about the next step. And I'm thinking, who's it going to be? Is Mel going to be the hero of the next one, or is it the child, the children, or whoever? But I'm really excited for that. So I don't actually think I need to say anything more about the book, because the book is, I think, fulfilling on what Ashkan, you shared in the beginning, is bringing works that establish relevance and have this being relatable. And I think you've achieved that. And thank you, because being and human being are, as you said, more directive and have take a different form, but becoming, you can relate to it. And I know as I read it, I am definitely reading it from a coach's perspective. That's my lens. So I'm and actually intrigued as, that's how Ashkan coaches. So it was really interesting, and yet it's fiction, right? And it may not be how Ashkan coaches, but it's grace in the book. So yeah, I've been learning things through it as well. But also it makes it relatable to what the journey of a coachee, and the ups and downs and the narrative and the thinking on the couch, and we all can relate to that, what's going on for our story. I think I'll just finish with, I'm just so grateful. Grateful to you, Ashkan. Grateful for who you are for this community, and grateful that you're our friend. Actually, it's interesting because I think we're all here on this community. We're all the same commitment to making a difference to people and our world. And what I love about this work is it actually does work. It's because it's real. It's not made up. And it's actually not that complicated. And so what this does, though, is make it accessible. So takes the complexity out of it and makes it so we can all understand it. But incredibly grateful and just excited for this community and all those new people who are coming on board, and the tsunami of vulnerability and courage and love that we're taking out into the world. It's making a difference, and we can see it here. And then I think about my family, the families we impact. The tsunami started, so it's going. So well done, Ashkan. We love you, and thank you for everything you are in the community, and just for humanity.
Awesome, Louise. Thank you. Thank you for your sharing. And I think at the end you said it there that number one, how we as a community have been transforming ourselves. I think you can hear it in the speaking. But also, there's many people who are being introduced to the work, and then what this is going to mean for them to be able to bridge in. And with that, in a moment, I'm going to open it up for questions. And exactly on that note, so yes, a good number of you sitting in here, and obviously many people who have shared have had this relationship and with us, and have been working on this for some time. But I want to put it out there that many on the call, this is your first ever exposure, and you're going, what is this thing? How does it work? Now, as we go into the question and answer part, I'd like to make it extremely clear. Feel free to bring up anything in terms of the book, or it could be something you've heard as a human being, you know, as something, what you're living through right now. If it has raised any questions, you know, open up to you. If you're someone who has been in the work for some time and there's something that you want to bring up that's in front of you, that's also completely appropriate. Now, I wanted to give Ashkan just a moment. Just if you, Ashkan, would you like to share or acknowledge anything on the speakers before we then open it up for questions?
Yeah, sure. So just the burning, I had to switch my camera a few times because my setup is quite new, and it seems that this computer cannot handle all these cameras and everything, this buffering. So I don't know who was it. He said computers outperform us, but yeah. So that's just the burning. Obviously, I would love to acknowledge all of you. I mean, I was being quite present. I didn't know what is going to be said. and seeing myself and what I have said in the mirror of every single person who has shared is a very unique experience. Yeah, so I was being quite present to that and how things are landing, how it's landing differently, different people, and I find it quite valuable. And I would like you to know that it was not just me sitting in the cave and then writing about all these things. If there was no interaction, no feedback, no storytelling, and now I think our community in the coaches side, it's like close to 200 people, coaches and practitioners, and but it's not just that. Like, we work with lots of entrepreneurs, we work with investors, we work with different people. And yeah, I mean, all these stories contributed. And particularly, I would love to acknowledge the people that have been involved in the production of the book with me from the community, from multiple different perspectives, like John Smallwood, Phaedra herself, Caroline, Aydin, Lucy, and many more. Like, I'm afraid that I miss names, but yeah, so thank you for sharing some of the stories anonymously with me, some of the experiences that many of you had with people and everything, and I try to reflect that in the book. So yeah, so that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, Ashkan. Excellent. Okay, so now let me open up the floor to you. If you have a question, either about the book or for Ashkan himself from an author's perspective, feel free to bring it up. I would say best thing to do is to put up the digital hand in case I don't see you, or if for some reason you prefer, you can put it in the chat and I'll bring it up for you. Okay, let's go to Adonica.
Hi, congratulations, Ashkan and the whole team for this accomplishment. I look forward to reading it. I have not had that opportunity as yet. And my question for Ashkan is, through the writing of this book, and I know with writing, we often come up with our own insights, and I'd love to hear your greatest insight about yourself and your own becoming as you wrote this book.
Very. So how much time we have?
I think we have till for the next 25 minutes at least.
Yeah. So one of the biggest one is, like, we all have blind spots in different times, at different stages in our life, and there's this limitation to our perceptual structure. They often talk about it because sometimes we cannot see certain things that are so obvious in front of us, and be ignorant or neglecting things, or sometimes deliberately averting our gaze away. And also at times we can see things that are not even real. We can be delusional. We can just create layers of realities, personal reality, and have misconceptions of things. So I think the biggest thing for me is like in all these reflections, and I said, like, it's not just a story, it's the whole phenomenological way of thinking. So emergence is one of the keywords in what I philosophically talk about. So, but as I brought it to the story, like I was paging my own past, and I was in retrospect, I was seeing the parts that I could do differently myself. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, I have always been vulnerable all the time, or I mean, even at times still, I catch myself today. It's not like if you have a relatively healthy relationship with vulnerability, let's say, then it's going to be, you're going to reside in that safe and stable disposition, or a state. The thing is, the likelihood of you being able to catch those moments and then hold yourself to account, restore integrity, would be exponentially increased, like as you make yourself more and more present to all these things, or as I said, you polish. So yeah, so I've been quite present to that, and one of the biggest thing also is forgiveness for myself. Yeah, so forgiveness, not necessarily as this kind of watered down, purely just altruistic quality, but a very practical quality, because I have my shadows. Everyone else in my teams, they have their shadows. Sometimes our clients, they have their shadows. Our audience, they have shadows. So being able to own it powerfully and be prepared and forgive in advance, that actually saves time, because as we expand things, if you're doing more and more things, the number of mistakes is going to go higher. The number of knowingly, the mistakes that we're making knowingly, they increase, and you don't even have time to sit there and then be in grief of each and every of them, even for 2 minutes, because they're going to be occupying so much time. So yeah, I would say, one, my authentic awareness around certain matters. So I'm developing more congruent conceptions of different fragments of reality as I was going through the story. And then the second was like becoming so present to this, these shadows, and being more forgiving around it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ashkan. Yeah. And thank you for forgiving your shadows ahead of time, because without that, who knows what would have happened with the book.
Yeah, see, we don't know.
Thank you for the question, Danica. Excellent. So feel free to put in more questions there. I actually have one on behalf of, because I know that some people are here from our entrepreneurial community, Ashkan, and so I would love you to speak to, from an entrepreneur's perspective, or perhaps a professional one, how someone may read the book, or what perspective would you suggest?
I mean, so entrepreneurs, like everyone else, they have an intention they want to fulfill. Often, in the beginning, their intention would be, the high level intention is to be making revenue generating, profitable, scalable organizations. And often they want to have a kind of exit strategy, as they say, build it up, sell it at some point, exit with a tremendous amount of money. Or they are these visionaries that they want to keep growing the business and solve human beings' problems. And so therefore they have an intention many of them care a lot about. So, and then entrepreneurship is this unknown. You can't fully engineer everything. You can't engineer everything because you're dealing with unstructured problems, and it's very diverse. It's very multidisciplinary. You need to be dealing with legal matters. You need to be dealing with product development, value creation, delivery of the value and an offering, serving people. See? So often when we talk about capitalism, I don't like that term because that term was given to what is known as capitalism by its enemies. But let's not go there. We'll reserve that for the book that will come called Beyond Capital. That's a book I've been working on. So yeah, it's service-based economy. It's like you go there and then you put your whatever talent and qualities and particularly your being, aspects of being, you're bringing all that. You add up monetary capital, economic resources, and you need to still align people. You need to sell your vision. You need to attract the best of the best to gather together and shape a piece of product. You put it out there, deal with tremendous amount of anxiety, unknowns, uncertainties, and then you'll see if you can articulate the value of what you have to offer through what is known as marketing, basically influencing the perceived value of whatever is there for you to offer. So again, like all of these, identifying the need of a group of people called market, yeah, it requires compassion. You need to be resonating. You need to be present to their pain and suffering so that then you can validate that genuine pain. And then you need to bring your creativity, proactivity. You need to be this person who initiates things. You need to be this person to bring all these things together so that then you can come up with a solution. And in order for you to come up with that solution, you need to align teams, and so communication, it becomes a thing. Therefore, your vulnerability, so one of the things that I think I do well is tapping to other people's resources. I mean, many of you're here, like I always ask you things. Now, traditionally speaking, they call it like exploitation of people or something, but no, so when it's with consent, when it's like when you're selling your vision, when you're aligning people, the only medium of exchanging value is not dollar notes. So basically, then the next stage is like articulating it in such a way that your market, the people out there, they find it valuable enough so that they can they can exchange their money as a token with that whatever value you have to offer voluntarily in a free society. So therefore, in any of these stages, from your authentic brand, your marketing, influencing the perceived value of whatever you have, coming up with that value or product or service, having this willingness to actually genuinely serve so that it leads to customer satisfaction. So any of these keywords that we often use they became jargons to the business world. If you think about it deeply, you see that it all goes back to the being of people. If you're this leader who is not charismatic or who's not many people find you interesting enough to follow, you're not a leader. You can't influence, So therefore, at any stage here of business building, you so need to focus on your being. Hence the book, before we even go to the whole conversation of how Yoren ends up building a business, we don't even go there. We say that what sort of things are getting in his way, so that then he can build a business. I give you 1-2 examples here. We often, like on the Engenesis venture side, we often work with different, I think roughly 400 different people from different parts of the world our team talks to, so that they filter them to almost 100 people. And these 100 people go to this free program that we have, so that then we can we can get to know new people so that we can work with, serve, or partner with, or even in rare cases, invest monetary capital. Then some of them, they go through all this rigorous process, but then they show up in the session that we have, and they want to pitch, as they say, pitch their idea or pitch their business. And the commitment we create with them is like, you come to the meeting with all your co-founders. In some of them, like recently we had this session, this person comes up, where is your co-founder? Well, actually, he was busy. How come? He's now pitching our business to another investor. So, okay, so very, very interesting. You're going to an investor feeling that you are entitled to their monetary capital, and then you're giving them this feeling with your execution because of your being. Okay, it's like, for example, you go and date someone and go, be so quick, please. I'm dating the next person in the next 5 minutes. I mean, they don't understand that this is like literally in a blind spot. Or for example, like they're supposed to come on time and then they make delays or prepare something before the session. And so they're missing the basic commitments. And then if the investor is sitting there observing them, it's like Pinocchio's nose. They're seeing your being. And how come then they should trust you enough to bring their monetary capital into your business? These are basic examples. Or for example, sometimes we deliberately want them to inject a little bit of cash themselves first before we build a relationship with them, because we're not going to be building relationship with them in 3 sessions. We want to see how committed they are. Some of them, we've experienced this thing. They go, oh yeah, guys, you help us raise fund, and then we're going to pay your services team. As if like they're treating their money quite differently to the investor's money, not knowing that this person sitting in front of you is the investor. I just don't have horns or tails. But the whole execution, long story short, is, like their being is being manifested out there. And that just like doesn't let them to grow, doesn't let them to be able to sell their vision, communicate, or be seen as these trustworthy individuals. And then they can't raise fund, they can't build their business. And these are just few examples. So highly, I mean, we so know now that before we go to any kind of business conversation or techniques or anything, being matters. That's what I would have to say to entrepreneurs.
Oh, thank you, Ashkan.
If they doubt it, they can basically look into my own track record, so that they see like how this whole conversation of being led to generational wealth.
And I think that it's quite clear, no matter what area of your life, if someone is looking at it professionally, in their family, etc., then yeah, the being never leaves you. I mean, it's there with you. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So I want to make best use of the time we have. Madad, you had a question?
Yes. Hello, everyone, and congratulations, Ashkan. I'm very happy that you're keeping on producing more books for mankind, and yeah, this is just fantastic. Yeah, one thing I was very curious about is, in Yoren's transformation, is he going to build his awareness personally, like independently, or is he going to meet a mentor or a leader that would show him some paths and give him some mentors that would eventually lead him to his transformation?
So the question is if he could do it by himself instead of like having mentors or coaches working with him.
In my personal experience, sorry about that. Yeah, some people are, I wouldn't say my leaders, but my mentors. They were very inspiring for me, and even if they're dead, like some dead philosophers or poets and such, and how would this be in this particular story?
Yeah, so one of the things that actually Martin Heidegger talks about is this concept of Mitsein in German, or being with. So basically, he argued that you are inauthentic or have incongruent conception of this piece of reality if you think that you're independent, solely independent, or if you are alone. Yeah, no, you are living in accordance with others. You're living, sharing this thing called existence with other beings, not just human beings, but let's just stick to human beings. I personally haven't done a single major, at least like in the business realm, done anything there alone. And here's the next bit. In all the people that I have read about, understood, and studied, I haven't seen a single person in all these high achievers, as I call them, who have done and achieved the things that they have achieved alone. Now, I know that it's a kind of modern phenomenon that we glorify a person. So here, for example, even like when it comes to me, I mean, we're saying that these are Ashkan's achievements. In part is true, but it's like so many different things, so many different people are contributing into this. This is the reality. Yeah. So, going back to that, I mean, this is what I often say to people, that they have massive resistance to coaching. And this is not a commercial conversation. We need others. We need others. Now, these others could be our, support system network, friends, family members, people around us. And at times we do really need professionals who have expertise in certain areas, who are trained, and they can bring that effectiveness into our life. They can facilitate something and save us time. Sometimes when we work with entrepreneurs, I tell them that, see, you seem to be smart enough. You can go and then build it yourself. Yet our experience shows in working with thousands of entrepreneurs, we know that you're going to make certain common mistakes that are avoidable. Now it's up to you. So, there are significant differences when it comes to mentors or coaches, what are they? But then let's not go there in this limited time. What I would say is, we need others, and these others, if they are quite trained, they can save us time. They can save us certain unnecessary suffering that we may go through. So it's not necessary, in a way, but it is necessary. You know what I mean? It depends. Sometimes you just want to stay fit. You just go to the gym and then you learn certain things online, and then you change your diet, etc., etc. Sometimes you're aiming to be Olympic athlete, and it matters. You need different coaches and mentors and advisors who help you. So, yeah, that's what I would leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madad. So I think we have time for just one final quick question, if there's anyone burning. Otherwise, I'll go into wrap up. Going once. No? Okay. All good. Because, there are going to be plenty of additional opportunities as we continue things on. So, first and foremost, let me let you all know, we'll send out a brief email with a collection of different resources and links, the different places where you can access the books, etc. So simply check your email and that's all going to be there. Now, this one is quite a particular point in you could even say the history, because as we were pointing to, Ashkan has been working in more of these closed groups creating the basis of the work. But as you can see from this novel, and I think, Anna, you said it, it's not only a novel, but it's a novel approach to introducing this quite intricate work, but to make it quite simple and easy to understand. So with the studio, with a lot of Ashkan's energy, it's going to be put into a lot more of these free and accessible conversations in a multitude of ways. So number one is Ashkan on the Engenesis platform. There are already a series of articles there and more are to be added. Ashkan's YouTube, so this is his personal YouTube where he's going to continue this conversation. And you can expect more, again, similar to this, as he will be in the studio. And then if it's slightly more commercial, if it's business oriented, then LinkedIn is definitely the channel to go and connect. Okay. And then we will also send out these. This is a good place to start. First and foremost, Caroline's interview of Ashkan, which was just a couple of months ago. And then there was the Culture of Leadership podcast, which was also launched recently. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, we really, I mean, I can already see that more and more conversations are going to come internally, right, to feed back to Ashkan, and that continues to impact and contribute to the work. I'm quite excited actually, because you know what has happened from here, what is it going to look like in another 1 or 2 years? The mystery, I think, is just as exciting for us all as we continue on to see the results that come about in home life, family life, all the way through to business, entrepreneurship. Actually, there was this book for me personally contributed to how I was coaching one of our entrepreneurs based in Africa, based in Kenya. And in the last 2 weeks, he just confirmed his $1 million USD fundraising. Yeah. And there was so many things for him to personally grapple with in that journey. So, you know, all of these things bit by bit are having that ripple effect, I think, as Jeanette, you put it. And so, yeah, on my side, I'd like to just express my personal gratitude for everything that each of you do, having the courage, having the vulnerability, not allowing this book to just stay on the shelf or to be just read as a one-layered story, you know, for it to touch your heart and then have the courage to turn it into a single conversation. I'm just so blessed and privileged to be with that, let alone to then hear about the story that you're coming back and letting us know. So thank you. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Ashkan for any final words, as we come to a close.
Thank you. So last but not least, what I would love to do is to acknowledge my wife. She's here in the background, but she couldn't talk because she got fever and sore throat like me. And she's pregnant. We're expecting our second baby in a month and a half. And so despite all this, her support was invaluable. I mean, I can't talk much about that. Like without her, much of all these things could have been harder and harder. I would like to thank and acknowledge Arya, because Arya has a very special place in my heart as a friend, as a business partner, and as you can see, he's contributing a lot. Without him, we couldn't be running all these businesses at the same time, producing all this content and everything. And then last thing is, as we touched on it, see, I know that all these commercial conversations are there because at the end of the day, I'm a CEO of businesses, but we're just doing that to be able to pull out all these different economic resources as well as people together so that we can generate greater results. And that's our interpretation of entrepreneurship. But putting that aside, so from here, literally like with the videos, YouTube, podcast, and I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be creating more of these conversations, to making it more accessible to people. Then the rest of the books will come and the conversations flow. We're producing content with our community. We're doing certain community books, contextualizing the being discourse in multiple different dimensions of life. So basically from here, we're going to make the body of work, so through our platform, far more accessible to broader audience out there. So this is the message, the last message I have. Thank you again for staying with us. It's your Saturday morning. It's a big sacrifice, I know, and appreciate it. I'm so grateful, and wish you a great rest of the day and week. And yeah.
Excellent, everyone. Thank you so much. We will see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.